We're back at Sharjah. That could mean many things, but we know that we're in for some entertainment. Sharjah tends to inflate average scores and numbers of boundaries and strike rates and whatnot. And it also happens to be the ground that the Rajasthan Royals are invincible at, if you can call them that. They'd like that sort of performance today because after those opening day wins against Kings 11 Punjab and Chennai Super Kings, they've not faced victory in either Abu Dhabi or Dubai. They're back to Sharjah. It's their last game in Sharjah, and they're up against the Delhi Capitals, who since then have managed to occupy a top two spot rather regularly on that points table. We're focusing on that game between Delhi and Rajasthan as R. Ashwin says hello to Joss Butler for the first time since having him monkered it last season. Let's see how that would go on. Whirlpool presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout powered by Dell. Far away from Sharjah, safe and secure in a 7-star hotel in Abu Dhabi, Rajita Agarkar and Deep Das Gupta. They'd be very happy that they don't have to call these games in Sharjah because Ajit would much rather speak about games in Abu Dhabi where there is something in it for the bowlers. Today he's on our show, so you sympathize already by the bowlers that are warming up right now in Sharjah and the evidence of what we've seen, Ajit.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the nature of the job. I think that's why this tournament's been quite good, that not all three grounds are where 200s are scored consistently or it's almost a given. So Sharjah, the bowlers have to work slightly harder than the other venues. So you take it as a bowler. I mean, as long as I know it is a tough ground, but that's the one ground you're playing only 3 games. So that's the saving grace for the bowlers, but it is tough. It is tough. Hopefully there's a good chance the better bowling unit will win tonight.
Yeah, if you're Rajasthan Royals, Dave, looking at that start, you have what an impression they made after beating Chennai and then Punjab and whatnot, and then it's just gone south since then. They're back at Sharjah. What would that do for their confidence?
I think that should help them. The fact that the 2 games that they've won have been here in Sharjah. But on the flip side, if they manage to lose this one, I mean, they might get into that spiral and it'll be like 4 defeats in a row. And in a tournament like IPL, it could be a spiral upwards or downwards either way. But for RR, it seems like this is a very, very important game, a must-win game for them if they still want to be in contention for the qualifiers.
All right, news from the Sharjah Cricket Stadium, interestingly, is that Steve Smith has won the toss. He's going to have a bowl. Now, they did beat Kings 11 Punjab in that crazy game with Tewatia, Smashell and Cottrell. That's the only game that the team batting second has won at Sharjah. Otherwise, Rajasthan beat CSK batting first, Mumbai beat the Sunrisers batting first, and even the Delhi Capitals beat the Kolkata Knight Riders batting first. So, looking at the evidence of what's happened at Sharjah, Ajit, is that decision surprising?
You don't quite know. I mean, yeah, teams batting first have been winning, but it's such a hard ground to defend as well. It's a difficult choice for the captain. You sometimes just look at the pitch and what your team is likely to be good at. And at the moment, Delhi Capitals tick all boxes, whether they bat first or bat second. They've got a settled unit, a formidable unit. And even if either they bowl first or second, they've got a bowling unit at the moment, almost like a well-oiled machine, which all guys are doing their job. So it must be quite a nice job that Shreyas Iyer has at the moment when your pieces fall into place and guys perform. So you still have to work hard as a captain, but you don't necessarily have to work too hard as some of the teams at the moment are finding out.
Deep, same question to you. I guess if you're a Delhi Capitals, you look a good team. If you're Rajasthan Royals, you're losing. Sometimes maybe you hope you lose these tosses so the decision goes away from your hand.
It's a fair point. It's an absolutely fair point. And especially on these surfaces where, even if you're batting first, you're thinking, what pass score might be 200. So there is always this pressure on you, even if you're batting first. But having said that, chasing down, there is a chance that DC with that kind of a batting lineup, you might end up chasing a lot more than that. So, yeah, unless, they bowl really, really well. I think that's one of the things that must have crossed their mind or Steve Smith's mind, thinking about, just in case, we have a good start, we get some early wickets in, then we can control the game a lot better. And obviously, they've made a few bowling changes as well.
Yep.
You then try and put more pressure on what your stronger suit is. At this point, if you look at Rajasthan Royals, it is their batting. So you may as well put the onus on the batsman to chase down the score on a ground which if you bat well, big scores can be chased. It's not happened a lot, but it is possible to chase. And bowling being the weaker thing, 2 new bowlers coming in, so you'd rather get out of the way and then put that extra pressure on the batsmen and they've got a really good batting lineup.
Yep. All right. Fair point. There are two bowlers, like Ajit pointed out, new bowlers for Rajasthan Royals. They've made a couple of changes. Varun Aaron comes in, played a fair few games coming in midway last season for the Rajasthan Royals, but didn't make the starting 11. He's in. Out goes Ankit Rajput. And so too is the debut for Andrew Tye. Made a big move from the Kings 11 Punjab, not quite having the best of seasons last time. He makes his first appearance for the Rajasthan Royals. Tom Curran misses out in his place. So let's get thoughts on that first. Andrew Tye for Tom Curran. It's an interesting one, Ajit, given that Ben Stokes is available from their next game.
Yeah, I think it's also to do because the conditions are so difficult. The bowler, he is a specialist in T20 cricket. Lots of variations or lots of his slow balls as good as anyone that bowls a slow ball in this format. So they just need some variety, and they've added pace in form of Varun Aaron, and also Tom Curran did have a great game with the ball. So all those factors, but I think it's more to do with Andrew Tye being, he's got what, 1 or 2 fifers in the IPL, if I'm not wrong. So tells you he's got the variation, but he's also a wicket taker. So yeah, it's a touch harsh on Ankit Rajput, to be honest. It is a tough place to bowl, to be in and out of the team. Can't be easy, but it's like for like replacement. I think Varun Aaron, in fact, a touch quicker. So you kind of understand teams trying to find the winning combination of best 11. When you're not winning, it becomes that much harder.
All right, Deep, happy with those changes? Varun Aaron comes in and Andrew Tye as well.
Well, Andrew Tye, you can imagine. I mean, he's a death over specialist. Obviously he's done this before, but last season wasn't that great. Just have a feeling that people are aware of what his variations are and how he bowls in the death. But end of the day, he's somebody who, his trade is to bowl in the death. The other important fact is obviously Ankit. I don't know. Like Ajit mentioned, it is a touch harsh on Ankit. He did all right in the games that he's played. Yes, he's gone for a few in a game or two, but Varun Aaron, he's got pace, and I think on this surface, which is so good for batting, pace brings in a different dimension. And if somebody can clock over 140 consistently, that just helps the bowling unit a bit more.
Looking at what we've seen, Ajit, in this tournament at Sharjah, for a bowler, a fast bowler in particular, who makes his first appearance at Sharjah now, what possibly is going through his mind, and what would you like for that bowler to, how would you like for that bowler to approach a game like this? Imagine your first game against a strong batting side at Sharjah.
He's certainly praying. That's what I would do. But look, like I said before, that's the nature of your job. Some days are more difficult than the others. The good thing is you know what to expect in those conditions, or you know what kind of shots the batsmen have played. There is some evidence now. Mumbai Indians, I thought, bowled really well against Sunrisers. Okay, they've got some class quality in that attack, but you could see you still try and think right and try and execute the plans. I don't think you go away from what your natural style of bowling is. Varun Aaron's strength is pace, so he's got to try and come and bowl fast and get the ball in the right areas. Right areas could be different for different batsmen depending on the conditions, but that's what he's got to do. I don't think he needs to overthink, especially when you're playing your first game. It is going to be a tough ground to bowl, but your ideas, you've got to be sure of your ideas of what you're going to do. When you run into bowl, you've got to be clear of what your plan is to a particular batsman. And look, it might be difficult conditions, but if your thought process is right, generally things work for you. So don't overthink. Think about the ball you're going to bowl and not what's gone or what's coming next.
I remember that game again with the Delhi Capitals and the Knight Riders as well. And even someone like Rabada, as good as he was, went the distance. Andrik Nokke, though, had a really good game. So, if I could just explore a little more, Ajit, you've got Varun Aaron pace, Jofra Archer real pace, Karthik Tyagi showed a bit of pace about it. You got, it's one of the few teams that actually have 3 guys with decent pace in it. But is there a worry here about pace also going the distance? How do really fast bowlers make the most out of Sharjah?
But you look at what your best composition of your attack is. And at this point, they feel these 3 are the guys. Okay, like we spoke about Ankit Rajput, not too far away, to be honest. But you just look at the composition and it doesn't matter. It's not as if the slower bowlers are getting more help or getting away with it. So you look at what your best form of attack is. And Deep said before, good real pace can trouble any batsman in the world on any surface if you get it right. So No batsman really fancies going up against 145 and 150 Ks, uh, no matter who he is. So you can make life difficult. So I don't think it's one or the other. You try and see what your best combination of your attack is, and at this point they feel. So I think it's the two changes are good. Andrew Tye offers something different to what Varun Aaron does. And I don't. I mean, like I said, I think the 11s. As much as you don't quite know till the game starts, the 11 at the moment looks a good pick.
All right, looks a stronger Rajasthan team. Delhi Capitals are unchanged. There are no surprises there, given the kind of form they've had of late. So it's a pretty settled, stable side. They've had to swap the spinners around after Amit Mishra's injury. That was after R. Ashwin got an injury himself. So a couple of injuries have only made those changes. Otherwise, that's been a pretty settled team. Harshal Patel seems to have claimed that Indian seamer spot ahead of Avesh Khan and Ishant Sharma. Deep, no surprises there. That looks a pretty decent team now.
Yeah, they are well settled as well. I think they've found their playing. I mean, the right playing 11, the right combination. Harshal Patel, the last time he played here in Sharjah, he bowled really well. He was an extremely smart bowler. Obviously, doesn't have the pace like someone like Rabada or Nokia, but he's a smart bowler. He did well last time around, and it's a settled side. You don't want to ruffle feathers there. I mean, it's a settled side. It's a very good squad as well. Right at the beginning of IPL, I think one of the things I mentioned was they've got all their boxes ticked as far as the squad is concerned, and now it seems like the playing 11 is also very settled.
Yep, looks a settled team. Prithvi Shaw looks like he's in some serious form, and Shikhar Dhawan tends to up the ante when it comes to Sharjah. But looking at the resources that they do have, Ajit Hetma has hardly had much of a hit. We know how talented he is. Is there a case perhaps to go harder at the top? Shikhar Dhawan tends to go at that 120, 130 strike rate. Would you want a little more optimal use of resources for Delhi?
Yes and no. I suppose it depends on how your batsman at the other end is playing. I think Prithvi Shaw's got enough to quick starts. So Shikhar's had a chance to take his time. There's no doubt he'll want to play a little bit quicker than he has. That puts more pressure on the bowlers as well from both ends, rather. But at the moment, nothing's broke, so why fix it? If one of your batsmen's not getting a lot of the hit, I don't think it's an issue because you're winning, you're scoring enough runs. Everyone's been in the runs, especially that top order, whether it's Rishabh's, had starts or has had impactful innings. Stoinis has been a revelation really to me at the number that he bats. And Shreyas Iyer's had a couple of good innings. So everyone seems to be in decent nick. And they're getting the job done, which is at the end of the day what you want with the 11 that plays. So the thing is, because it's the same 11. Harshal Patel is probably the only change that's come in a couple of games back, but generally it's been the same 11 of the 12 guys playing. Tells you the story why it's a settled squad, and then performing becomes a lot easier when guys are backed and getting games consistently because it's such a hard format otherwise.
All right. Prithvi Shaw's had 3 good scores out of 5. We can spend a little time on Prithvi Shaw. It looks like he looks the real deal this season. Last year, he had that 199, that game which was super over against Kolkata, and then a string of low scores. Tends to get a start and gets himself out. He's looking like the real deal. A year later, Prithvi Shaw looks like a player who's aiming for consistency. What's worked for him? Why is he clicked this season?
I think obviously he's more matured over the last year or so, and also the surfaces. I mean, he's somebody who likes playing off the back foot. He likes ball coming onto the bat, and all these 3 surfaces, I think the ball comes onto the bat really nicely. And because he's a back foot player as well, that helps because most of these faster bowlers, they're bowling that short of length area. So that kind of helps him to play more strokes off the back foot. So anyone on these surfaces, any batsman who's comfortable off his back foot will obviously get more value for his shots as compared to somebody who's predominantly a front foot player. So I think that's something, the surfaces are something that is also kind of helping his cause.
Yeah, you've seen him from very close quarters, Ajit, your time at Mumbai as well. And you're looking at Prithvi Shaw now that seems to be getting more runs against top quality bowling. Gautam Gambhir compared him to Sehwag in terms of just the ability of stroke play without moving, can just hit well. So what's worked for Prithvi Shaw for you?
He's a special player. I mean, we've always known it. And yes, he's had his troubles off the field sometimes and, whatnot and injuries. But he's always, whenever he bats, you can see that's a special talent. Now, if you can convert that into consistency, some people take a little bit longer when you're younger. That's just the nature of it. And some people are, from day one are a bit more consistent. But one thing you can see is, I think a couple of things. Last game, I think there was a talk about his technique being changed, whether Ricky Ponting's worked on it. We
Yeah.
saw him generally goes back initially, goes towards the leg stump. We saw him sort of shuffle in a little bit towards the stumps. So those sorts of small technical changes can also make a huge difference in the way a player can play. But he's always been a special guy. We've seen him in Mumbai growing up, and he's got heaps of runs over the last few years. So I'm not in the least bit surprised. And with some sort of IPL experience now behind him, you can see a bit more consistency come into his game, which is what everyone hopes that happens with a young special talent.
A couple of games that he's not got that big score, I think, out in slightly similar fashion. Is there a way to bowl to Prithvi Shaw, player like him that attacks you initially? How would you bowl him?
I mean, you can see that the thing is, I mean, Gambhir was right. He is a little bit like Sehwag. You feel that there is some weakness. He plays sometimes away. Feet don't really move. The hands are there, but the hands are so good. So you still want to try and bowl a good ball. On off stump. That there have been times when the ball's decked back in and he's had issues with it. We saw a good short ball in the previous game. Whether more bowlers will exploit that, we'll have to wait and see. But it was a really good short ball. It's not as if he can't play the short ball. So when you have such a talented player, it is sometimes a little bit difficult. The thing is, because he plays so many shots, he's always going to give you a chance. And try and get the new ball a chance to do something, whatever little swing there is available. I don't think there is going to be any seam movement in Sharjah, and you always have a chance. But he's got such great hands and eye that it's not that as easy as it looks.
It doesn't strike you as someone who's worried too much about the extra pace. There's a lot of pace in that Rajasthan bowling deep, but can that work to Prithvi's advantage, or is this going to be a test for him? 2 or 3 bowlers all bowling 140 plus.
Listen, I don't think he'll be too bothered with the pace, and especially this generation. If you think about it, they're not really bothered about pace because obviously how you practice against bowling machines. You can crank it up with that side armor, and also I don't really think this generation is too bothered about pace as it used to be the case earlier. So and especially someone like Prithvi Shaw, he as Ajit mentioned, he's very, very talented. And again, the fact that he does not move that much in terms of footwork, that gives him that split second extra to play his shots. Obviously, he's got great hands as well. And the fact that he is really good off the back foot, I think that again helps against quick bowling.
The other player that yes,
the one other thing is he can defend the ball. A lot of times, otherwise, if you don't have a decent enough defense, I mean, people talk about Sehwag, but Sehwag could defend the ball if he wanted. So it's not. So you've got to still have the ability to keep the good balls out, which he does, and hopefully he's learning. And with experience, the shot selection keeps getting better.
All right, fair point. Prithvi Shaw has had a great start to this season. Let's see if he can cash in on another game in Sharjah. Second for the Delhi Capitals and last one this season. Every team plays 3, like we mentioned multiple times. The other player we talk about perhaps is Andrew Tye, making his debut this year. Now, it's been an up and down IPL journey for Andrew Tye. 2 seasons back, bought for big money at Kings 11 Punjab, Ajit, and had a revelation of a season. And then you look at Andrew Tye's last season, I think a little bit of injury, didn't play as much, wasn't as effective, went into the auction, went for just 1 crore or 2 crore to Rajasthan Royals. Seems to be a bowler that either players have figured out or whether last season was an injury-prone season. But when you have a high and low in the IPL, what can you do in the third season then?
You hope for an opportunity, really, as a bowler. That's the thing, because there are other guys who are coming through or teams plan differently, and you don't end up being the first choice, which is sometimes a hard thing when you're not playing consistent. That's the worst thing for any player, really. When you're not playing consistently, you don't quite know what your position is. But he's an experienced guy. I think he is a T20 specialist. I think that's the one good thing. He knows his game quite well, relies on his variations, bowls a lot at the depth at all the teams that he plays. And there's an Australian captain that's leading that team. So all those things should help him. What can he do? I think he's bowled enough in T20 cricket. So I don't think... I think one of the other reasons that they've played him is because of what he does at the death and because of the variations. Because we've seen how difficult it is in Sharjah if there's some sameness to the attack, and he provides that variety to them. So hopefully he can go well, because he's had some really good performances in the IPL before.
And you think he's got 1 game. If he gets 3 or 4 wickets, then who does Ben Stokes come in for next game?
Yeah, that'll be interesting, but thank God we don't have to take that decision. But again,
Walks in. Doesn't matter who he comes in. He walks in. in that
Uh,
game.
but the other important thing is if you look at how Herschel bowled in the last game for DC, I mean, he's high because of the variations that he's got. And on surfaces like these, you have to be unpredictable. And so the more variations you have, I think it's better off as a bowler. And someone like Andrew Tye has those variations. So I think they've taken a leaf out of from DC and how they performed and how rather Herschel performed at Sharjah the last game. I think that's something that Andrew Tye might do as well.
I like the point that you make, the Harshal Patel. He's an interesting one as well. It looks like Delhi have come with a fairly sort of cutthroat approach to this year. You had Avesh Khan play a game, then you got Ishant Sharma and when fit. The minute they moved to Sharjah, they dropped Ishant Sharma and just played Harshal Patel. It looks like he's the guy they're going to play now. So some fairly emotionless decisions that we're seeing from the Capitals.
Oh, sorry. Actually,
But yeah, anyone can take that.
sorry. I thought I'll let the bowler talk. But
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
let's not forget Mohit Sharma. They started with him. So
Yes, this
that's the other thing that this squad has. They have options. I think because of Mishra's injury, that's perhaps one area where they at the moment look like have only Ashwin and Akshar Patel. But apart from that, they have most bases covered. So if they need to replace people, depending on what the conditions are, and he had a really good game in Sharjah. Had a tough game after that, but had a really good game in Sharjah. So and he's smart. He knows his game well, knows his limitations, doesn't try to outdo, or just try to show something different. He plays within himself, and that's what you sometimes need on tough pitches in tough conditions.
And he's an enigma. I mean, the one known thing that we don't know of Harshal Patel, he actually opened, didn't he, in domestic for Haryana?
Yeah. He's a decent bat. I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember or not, when he was playing for RCB, he had a few decent innings batting there as well. And even while he was at RCB, he had a fairly good run with the ball too. So yeah, I mean, someone like Ajit mentioned, he exactly knows what his boundaries are, and he does not. I mean, what he tries to do is outthink the batsman and not really outthink himself.
Yeah, I mean, the battle 10 now. You think Hetmyer would be saying, what do you need Harshal Patel's batting for? No, Hetmyer has hardly had a hit this season. And Marcus Stoinis, we haven't been spoken of him. He's played 2 match-winning innings of his own. So it's a very good-looking Delhi side. Question perhaps is, what do you aim for now in Sharjah? 250, 300? Ajit?
I mean, you want to just play the game normally, not because of what's happened before. You could end up finishing 150, and that might not be enough. So you don't try and overachieve. If they bat naturally, there's so many guys who score quickly. If you don't lose too many wickets up front, which will be the first thing, this RR attack has some decent. I mean, Archer, the way he bowled in one of the games when he started, consistently clocking 150 Ks, that's not going to be easy. So you don't want to lose too many wickets. Then you could really end up in trouble. Doesn't matter how many people can bat down the order. So the 200 seems to be a bare minimum that teams are looking for. Anything above that, 200 is never easy to chase. Teams have gotten closer to 218, I think, the last time, or 228. But it's not as straightforward. So, and it won't happen every time as good as the conditions are. But I think from what we've seen or the evidence, 200 seems to be a bare minimum that they will need.
Yeah, 200 for you, Deep? Or a little more, just to have a little insurance?
But you know what, as Ajit mentioned, first couple of overs you still bat normally because you have the luxury of players in form and players like Stoinis, Hetmyer, Rishabh. So you can kind of have a couple of those overs initially, try and assess, because yes, I mean, a lot of runs have been scored here, but you never know. This surface might just be a little different. Could be a 180 surface, could be a 200. I think the first couple of overs, I think it'll be safer to go in with an open mind and assess after the first couple of overs.
Varun Aaron has the new ball. Fair call, Ajit. Jofra Archer second over, or is he going to be split now?
He better be. I mean, how can Jofra start on a pitch where there are heaps of runs scored? You want to try and make an impact early, and who better to do that than one of the best white ball bowlers in the world? So, don't have a problem with Varun Aaron starting. I think again, wicket taking option is what you look at. Who your best wicket taking options are? But Jofra's got to bowl the second over. I'd be shocked if he's not. Although it's happened quite often.
Yeah, I know. Who's going to call what captains do this season anymore? We're done, right? All right, Deep Dasgupta, Ajit Agarkar, let's pick up this conversation in 20 overs from now. New look Rajasthan bowling lineup. Let's see how they go at Sharjah, which has already been christened as the graveyard for bowlers by Sanjay Manjrekar on this show. Let's pick up the conversation, and we'll see you then on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket 4 T20 Timeout, powered by Dell.